Hello, this is Ryan, and today I'm going to be demoing Node Station, my Space Station 13 remake attempt. So we'll start up the server, we'll load up the game. You'll notice the top bar here has been expanded drastically, and you can actually see some of the items that we have in our inventory. So if I press I to bring up the inventory menu, and I go to the Captain Hat, and I press enter, and then I press enter again on equip, the captain's hat moves into my right hand, and you can see my pawn is no longer, or my person is no longer, has the hat equipped. You also notice that my ID is equipped into its ID slot. If I unequip the ID and I try to go through the door, I can't. But if I equip the ID, then I can go through the door. So there is that feature. I want to apologize if you guys are seeing screen flickering. My recording software is either not set up correctly, it's something that I don't care to really look into right now. It's causing maybe some visual artifacts on the screen. For the next couple of demos, I'm going to need another person in the game, so I'll join the server again. So, I forgot, if you press E, it's examine. So if I press E and then down, it'll show this ID card. I can pick it up. If I press E and then down again, I can drop the ID card back in the slot. If I press E and then left, I can grab the person. Right now that's the person's ID in game. I'm going to have to change that to names when I get around to it. I can drag the person around, so you can do stuff like that, which I have seen in Space Station 13. If you press E and select the person again, you can let them go, and then you can move around normally. That'll work if they're dead. If they are dead, so let's just commit some heinous crimes here. You can go on and strip their body, which if you press E again, you can see all of their items. So I can take their ID card and then run away laughing like a maniac because I'm an idiot. So that's the features thus far, and I think we're going to move on to the coding segment. So if you're not into code, feel free to take off. There's not really going to be anything too terribly interesting for you to see. And then for those of you who are, follow me and get rid of these things. Hopefully that stabilizes the video recording software. Alright, so in the server, what has changed? I'd say a lot all over the place. We had a change here. This is where we create all of our items, and we do this differently because what was happening was we were creating the items only on one client but not the other. So this is a more generic way to create items and attach it to a pawn. So this code would be replaced with, say, a picking program to pick, what your initial player looks like. Grab has been changed, so now there's a type, so you can grab an item, or you can grab a pawn, depending on what you're targeting. And the same thing is with drop, so you can drop an item, or you can drop a pawn. And so here is the dropping code. The way that it's currently set up on the server side, the pawn and the pawn that's being grabbed both kind of have IDs that point towards each other. That may change in the future. Internal move, this is moving items to and from hands and back out. So that's that chunk of code. Strip is, well, I guess what it sounds like, so that's how you remove all of the items from a pawn. In the future, I'm thinking seriously about either having this take time to do more than instant, and possibly having to remove individual items of clothing. I don't know what we'll do, but we'll play it by ear and see what comes up. This change, or in the main loop, there isn't much. There is the pawns dragging things around code, so this is right now only for dragging other pawns. In the future, I plan on adding furniture, anything that's not bolted or welded down. And I think that's about it. If we move on to the types file, remember this is relatively new. So now each type has a pawn slot type. So this is an ID card, and the pawn slot type is card, which means this will only fit in the pawn's card slot. If this is blank, then it's just an item the pawn can carry around. It's nothing that it can actually equip. Here's the name, so this is what shows up in the inventory list. I'm also planning on adding description, and that would probably include HTML tags. I'll probably dump the description into the chat window. So here's the uniform. It's got a type uniform. Upon visible means that this item is will be rendered on the pawn if it's equipped. And here we go. Item name, Captain Uniform. Same thing for the feet. This has a pawn slot type feet, and same for the hat. This is a misnomer. I came to realize after a while that the captain boots are just regular boots, and a captain can wear them. They're not necessarily, tied to the captain in any particular way. So that's one way you could help out if you wanted to make some changes there. Moving on to the game engine. The game engine, we've loaded in. Let's see. Here we go. We've loaded in some item sprites. For every item in that types, you're going to need to, or not for every item, but if you need more graphics for those items under the type, you'll need to add more of these sprite sheets. They're not too hard to do. Let's keep going down here. UI slot images, so this just holds all of the sprites for the background and the foreground image of the inventory. This is kind of my storage area for all the menus. We'll go over that in a little bit. So let's see what has changed. So this would set up the images for the slots on the client side. Here are the menus. So there's an inventory menu and then an examine menu. And this code just kind of sets both up. This code just sets both of those up. Let's see what else has changed. Not too much has changed. We send a pawn drag type and a pawn drag ID. So this is the type of thing the pawn is dragging and the ID of that type that the pawn is dragging. So is it a piece of furniture? If so, what is its ID? We just keep going down here. So E for examine, we're calling the examine code there on key down. These are passing key downs and key up events. This is just key down to the menu. Only when they're active though. And that I should probably go over. So if we're not in menu on the inventory, or if we're not in menu on the examine, then the regular controls kick in. Otherwise, key down does nothing. So only if the menus are enabled. This is the inventory setup code. You can look through this. It's just, slogging through all of the possible items and only giving the player an option to move the things that make sense. Same thing with the examine, it's a little less intense. Here's the whole inventory menu as it stands. It's very long and very ladder logic-y. Until I can think of a better way to do that, that's pretty much how that's going to stay. And the examine menu is here. It's a bit longer because it's 3 menus deep versus 2. The little arrow thing that shows up when you press E, that's considered a menu. Outside of that, instead of picking which action or which number of ticks for your total ticks based on your action. We're just passing to the client the total ticks of whatever action we're currently doing. So now the client doesn't need to worry about whether they're walking or attacking. They always are going to reference this ticks total. And so same thing happens here, and same thing happens with the door. That's just a little cleanup. Updating pawn appearances. That's done through here. And there's a function up here that's kind of a helper. So this whole thing right there updates the pawn appearance. The pawn appearance updates every time, which is very slow. I guess not slow. What I want to say is very network intense, because all of those item IDs are being updated every time. So I may break the pawn into two separate updates, one for pawn motion and one for pawn appearance. But that'll happen only if I get some people saying that more performance is required. I think that's about it, guys. Well, thank you very much for watching, and hope you found this enjoyable. Bye.